Hi everyone, this is Christina. It's been a very long time again, and I'm sorry about that, but shortly after I've published my last video, which was 16 months ago, I had to go back to hospital again, and I've been away from home for almost 15 months. I came back around three weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and it was a very, very rough time for me. Even worse than the year before when I battled cancer. So yeah, I'm glad I'm home. I'm on the mend. I hope I will be back with regular content on YouTube in about 3 or 4 months. This video is not the missing second part for the texture sets for Substance Painter. I hope I can publish that video in 3 or 4 weeks, hopefully. This video is about a topic that came up this week and is the answer to a question one of my viewers asked me on another channel. It is a bit weird. That other channel published a video about modeling a honeycomb, and when I saw the title, I thought, well, that can't be about the honeycomb itself because we have that for free with the extra mesh add-on in Blender. I really thought when I watched this, it is about the process, how to set up, how to use a simple form and set up such patterns with the array in all directions we need. That was my thought process, and I wrote that under the video. You can read this here. The creator gave me a heart, and when I saw that heart, I thought, well, yeah, he is okay with what I wrote. This was really about the setup and not about the honeycomb. I'm not that sure of that anymore. Frank Bergman is one of my viewers as well. He saw my comment, and yeah, you can read what he wrote. At the same time, he wrote this answer you see here. That heart went away, and I thought, oh, he's not okay with that. But as Frank asked me how to do stuff, and really I would not be able to subscribe that with words, and that would be pages long. I didn't have any other possibility to reach Frank other than my email address. His is hidden on YouTube. He isn't a creator, so he has hidden his email address. So I couldn't reach out to him per mail. And therefore I wrote, yes, I make a short video about that. And nothing happened. That was 4 days ago. So I thought everything is fine. The same evening, we wrote those messages here. Frank wrote an email. He found my email address on YouTube. If I mind, if he messages me by mail, I wrote back no. And I gave him my phone number from my cell phone, and then he called me. So it was a bit of back and forth. He explained something about his project he has planned, and he said, I solved that problem with the triangles myself with a subdivision modifier. I said that would have been the way I would have suggested as well. And he said, well, now I have a lot of unnecessary quads. And I tried to explain that with words. It just didn't work out. And I said, you know what? I still make that video just with that other topic. And I tried to record that video 2 days back on Friday. It didn't work out. And I wrote Frank a mail, sorry, that video will not be out till Sunday evening or even Monday. And he wrote back, that's fine for me, but maybe change your comment. Others might look at the channel as well, don't see that video, and might think you don't publish at all. Yeah, and therefore, the only thing I changed was instead of on Monday, I had there at the weekend. So I changed that this morning, and then our whole thread was gone. Well, I for sure did not delete my comment. Why would I? Frank couldn't do it. He can't delete my comments. He would have been able to delete his answer, but again, why would he? So who deleted this? YouTube? Why would they? Yeah. Anyway, we'll tackle that problem no matter what that creator does. I just don't understand it. If it was the other way around, I would have been totally okay. There is nothing in my messages which harass him or, yeah. If you see this, you know who you are. If you don't like other people making suggestions or even a creator like me saying I make a short video about that, that wasn't about your stuff with that video, but how to get rid of triangles and the suggestion I made. So if you see this, maybe if you can't cope with stuff like that, don't make videos which are available for millions of people. My advice. Anyway. The honeycomb in Blender is in the extra meshes. If you press Shift A and go to mesh and don't see that stuff under the monkey, all that stuff here, that add-on is not activated. Let's do that. You go to your preferences and on the add-ons tab you type in extra and you find those two, both ship with Blender, so they are completely free. Activate them, save the preferences, and we are good to go. And if you now press Shift A again and go to the extras here, you find the honeycomb. Now, this is 2 by 2 by default. You can go up to 100 by 100. That's what Frank did. And he said, well, and his computer is much more powerful than mine. He said, even my computer struggles with subdivisions on that mesh. So he has 10,000 cells now. I don't want to do that. Let's go with 3 by 5. And it doesn't matter if you have two, so straight numbers or odd numbers, you can't get rid of those triangles. What we can do is make this smaller, much, much smaller. This was 1 by 1 meter, that cell, and 1 meter, that is more than half of my height. Well, I'm not the tallest person, but yeah, 1 meter for those of you in the US, that is a lot of stuff. Now, what we see here after I've made the cell smaller, but didn't pull the edge width, that is a great start when you need a perforated mesh, like for a perforated metal shield or a metal sheet, not shield, sheet or something like that. So you could use that. Throw on a subdivision modifier and you're almost good to go. We want to see our honeycomb, so I also make the edge width smaller again, and I pull this smaller again and this again, and now we kind of have what we want. Okay, no options to get rid of those triangles. Why do we see them at all? In the overlays here I have activated the wireframe. I find this is a good solution if you're in object mode and want or need to see where your edges are. I've put that on the quick favorite menu. If you want to do that, don't hover over this word, go to the checkbox and then right click and you can add this to your quick favorite menus. I've called the preferences before, but when I now call the wireframe, you can see that now sticks to my mouse cursor and I can go quickly back and forth. So let's grab the subdivision. This is Cut-Clark, which rounds everything out. For the honeycomb, we can't use that. So I go to simple and I also uncheck optimal display, which is active by default now. So we can see what happens to our mesh here. Without and with modifier, and you can see those triangle areas here are now split into 3 quads. They are diamond shaped, but quads nonetheless. But we also have those 4 quads now, and at least we can get rid of this edge. And that doesn't sound like much, but that saves us thousands of faces. Frank doesn't want triangles or NGons, so this edge here has to stay, because with that we subdivide not we, the modifier subdivides the triangles. Before we have a closer look how we deal with all that stuff, let's first talk about what I call automated selections. They are not really automated. You have to select something and maybe do 2 or 3 commands, but it is much quicker than manual selecting, especially through a large mesh. Even on this one, I wouldn't want to select all those edges here manually, and on a mesh with 10,000 cells, for sure not. So we need a method to target those all at once. If you want to do stuff like that, in general, you need selections you've saved. Let's talk about that first. You go to the object data property and you don't see facemaps up there. They are kind of down here. You can pull them up, and if you want it all the time, like I do, you can go to File, Defaults, Save Startup File, and would confirm this. I don't want to do this now, and I use those. What about the Vertex Groups? Well, Campbell, Barton, Sebastian, if someone of you sees that, I would love if you give us this menu from the Vertex Groups for the Facemaps, and I would also love if you give us edge groups, and for the Facemaps maybe a shortcut. If I select this and press Ctrl J, I get this here, but that makes a Vertex Group. So in the Facemaps I have to select everything manually. Why do I not want to use Vertex Groups? I use them, but most often only when I weight paint or in modifiers. Because in modifiers, like the shrink wrap, for example, with Vertex Groups, I can tell the modifier where to affect the mesh and where not. And in weight painting, yes, they are super useful. When it comes to automated selections, not so much, and in a lot of cases, they are just useless. We will see that in a moment. I delete this here. Facemaps. We don't have that menu, we don't have the shortcut, but yeah, we use them anyway because they will help us a lot when it comes to stuff like that. Now that I've made it clear we will use facemaps, let's have a look how we can target stuff. I usually, even in a character, I usually save quads in a group. Facemap, I call them groups. NGons and triangles in separate groups. Now here we have no NGons, but we have triangles and quads, and I always start with the quads because Blender does that automatically, really automatically for me when I go to select by trait, faces by side. Each Blender session you open, it is this setup. 4 vertices equal to, this should be the other way around, equal to 4 vertices, which means we have quads. So I make my first facemap. I name this quads. And you can always check if you have saved your selection really in this group. If you can't deselect your selection, it isn't saved. So you know you can't deselect, you have to assign. I do forget it a lot, to be honest, but now you can see that works. And when I select this again, only the quads are selected. This is what we expect. To go to the triangles, in this case, I would press CTRL+I. You should memorize that shortcut. That selects the inverse, so the opposite. But I want to show you more methods, therefore let's go with this one, or I deselect everything. And for now, we go back to faces by sides under the all by trait. I could go to 3, which targets the triangles, but I usually keep this on 4 and instead use the comparison type. Not equal to will target everything which isn't a quad. So triangles, and if we had them, in this mesh, which we don't, NGons. So you can see greater than will only select NGons. We don't have them, so that goes away. Equal to, we already had that, and less than will target the triangles. So this is one method you can use. Let me make this one a little bit larger. Another way you can use is the similar menu, and that has a shortcut which is Shift-G, but if I call that now without a selection, you can see no face selected. This menu has different entries, which depends on in which modes you are. So for the faces, Shift-G, those are these. The most useful, in my opinion, are material, area, and polygon side. In edge mode, we have those, and their length is the one I use the most, followed by seam and maybe sharp. I don't use creases at all, so I never need those. And this one here, for the vertex, I in general only use this one, connecting edges, because with that I can target NGons if I have no other possibility from existing selections. So these are the things we use. In this case, I make a selection, I select the triangle, and then I call Shift-G. If I now go by area, watch what happens. Area selects what is the same size or almost the same size. And you can see this one, which I made larger, is not selected anymore. Down here, we have the threshold. If I pull that up, at some point, here it comes. Now this is selected. But be careful. This threshold here does not only influence this particular selection. As long as the threshold is set, other selections will also work with that. And we will see that later on when we go to the edge to select the same lengths and stuff. So this is one possibility. Down here, this is the same menu like the one which you call with Shift-G. So you can change here. For example, when I go to the normals, everything will be selected because all normals point the same side. But you can still see this here, the active selection I made. And when I now go back to polygon sides, this will automatically, this has no threshold, this really goes to about the sides here, and this will also select this larger. And that could be super large and it would still be selected because it has the same sides, the same amount of sides. So that is what we can use. There are a lot of possibilities, go through them. And for these here, I just save them in this group. Again, I assign them. Now I can deselect them and can select them. Now these I want to assign to a vertex group so we can see what happens in a case like this. I have this group now which is already assigned, so I can deselect it. When I deselect it, the same happens as if I now go to vertex mode. Watch what happens. Everything is selected. When I do this with the vertex group, when I deselect this, there is no going back to the selection, not with the vertex group. With the Facemaps, yes, but not with the vertex group. If I deselect this and reselect this, everything is selected. So what is happening here? Well, with the vertex group, I tell Blender, I want all vertices that are involved with triangles, save them all in that group. Every single one. All triangle vertices. Yeah, and those are all vertices in the mesh. Those quads in between are made of 2 vertices on each side, which belong to the triangle. So here I told Blender, save all the vertices. This vertex group is just useless. I could also press A to select everything, and I have the same result. What would I use this for? And that is the case with a lot of vertex groups. The difference, even if I'm in vertex mode, watch what happens. I scroll in closer so you can see the colors better. If I'm on the tris group, the triangle group, you can see, although all faces are, all vertices are selected, not all surfaces are. Only the triangle surfaces are selected, and that is a huge advantage. But usually we do this in face mode. But even if I store this in face mode, so again, Control G to directly make a new group, you can see I can deselect them, yet this is also selecting everything. So it doesn't depend on the mode. This is just how the vertex groups work, and such a case, useless. That is why we use those. And a tip from me, never delete them. In your own file, never delete them. I keep them till the end. At the end, I make a file, a copy for my client. Then I, of course, do delete all that stuff that he doesn't need, or she, as well as Facemaps and Vertex Groups. I apply the modifiers, so they just have the finished mesh. But for my own files, yeah, I keep that. I don't delete them. I don't care if there are 50 or 60, just name them accordingly so you can find your stuff and you're good to go. For now, let's go back to the object mode briefly. I bring back the modifier and apply it, so everything is cut into the mesh. I would love somebody to tell me how to do the following automatically. In those triangle areas here, we have those 3 quads, diamond quads, but 3. There could be only 2. If I connect those 2 here with a new edge by pressing J, and then I go to edge mode and grab this one and press Ctrl X to dissolve them, we can see they look like triangles, but they are all quads. I have no clue how to do that in a automated or at least semi-automated way. So I select 1 or 2 components, call a few commands, and everything in the mesh is done. If somebody knows a solution for that, please let me know. Maybe that works with geometry nodes. I have no idea. I still have to learn them. I haven't worked with them yet. So let me know if there is a way to automate this, because saving one of those faces in thousands of those areas, yeah, that would be a lot of faces we can save. Now, what we can do in all at once is get rid of those here. No problem at all. These ones we need, or as one later on, because we need them to subdivide here for the triangle, but these ones here, they can go away, and that doesn't look like much, but that will also be thousands of faces and Frank's mesh with the 10,000 cells. Here we have 378 faces. We will go down 120 or so. How do we do that? Now, this is the one I've made larger. So I've deliberately used this middle edge here. I could also use this one, or this one, or this one. It doesn't matter. Here, they have the same length. So let's use this one. And I also have that on my quick favorite menu. So similar lengths, and you can see what happens. And this happens or selecting those at all happens because of the threshold. Let me reset this. This is what it looks like when you haven't changed the threshold beforehand. And I did change that to also select this larger triangle. But without that, it would look like that. So in some cases, you have to pull that up. And I pulled it up a little bit more and a little bit more. So everything here inside the triangle is selected. So also those smaller edges. I don't care about that because what I do anyway, I only want to get rid of those edges. Therefore, I deselect everything that belongs to the triangle area. I go into the Facemaps, I click the Tris and deselect and make sure you are in edge mode to do that. So now I'm left with these here and I can press Ctrl X and get rid of those. And watch our face count here, 120 faces less. So what we don't see here is if we don't look down here, if we have dissolved the vertices, we are in edge mode and in edge mode and in face mode, you just don't see that. Usually this is active by default, but maybe you've changed that. Sometimes we want to keep the vertices, we will need them for other stuff. Therefore, sometimes we might need to keep them and you have deactivated that. So save the file, closed it, come back, you go in vertex mode. Holy crap, there are all those vertices we did forget to dissolve. What do we do about this? You can still select the quads as long as the original vertices. That's how I know it. How I know it. I don't know if there's another explanation, but that's how I know it. As long as those original vertices are still in the mesh, you can, after you've merged stuff and subdivided stuff again, you can still select that area. And when I now click the Tris and deselect, we are left with those, and I can easily press Ctrl X. And although I've deactivated that, when you do that with vertices, that activates itself. You can see that here. Let's do Ctrl Z to undo that. Maybe you have deleted the face maps. Again, don't do that, but maybe you did. What do you do then? You click one of the vertices, you press Shift G, which brings you to the Select Similar menu, and now we go to Amount of Connecting Edges. They only have 2, so you still can target them. And with Ctrl X, I finally dissolve them. And we are back to the lowest amount of quads. I know, again, if you know another way, let me know. I know that we can do in that automated way. So Frank also told me in some places he wants to do more subdivision. You can select all the stuff you don't need and then only target those, hide them and then only target those, but in this case I will do them all. I select this edge here and in the similar menu again I select length, and you can see here, because I now that is about the threshold again, for the length you sometimes have to pull that up a little bit. Now here we go, and now I can press right click, subdivide, and do as many cuts as I want. Let's do like this. Again, I save my file, I close it, come back the next day, and then I remember, I didn't save the low resolution mesh. I need that as well. What do we do? Quads, select the face group. You can't do this in edge mode or in vertex mode. If I press Ctrl X in edge mode, you get this. We don't want that. If you think about F, which makes faces, that would only work if you have one of those areas and not all. If I do that now, that makes NGons in between, so that is not what we want either. You need to go into face mode, and let me activate this here. Now you press Ctrl X. We already know how to get rid of those vertices up here, which we have now. So let's bring that back. Where is my F9 key? Here we go. No, that doesn't work with that one. So let's undo that. We already know how to get rid of those vertices. Let's undo that and let's just do it like this. And I dissolve those. Now we have still NGons because here I have 3 and here I have 3 vertices. You can select those here, or you can go to select all by traits, faces by side, and set this to greater than, which will target the NGons. Now Frank wants quads, which means I now have to get rid of those NGons. I do that quickly, like I'm used to, and then I undo and we will have a closer look. So you press Ctrl T and directly after that Alt J, and here we are with our quads. So here we're back on the NGons. Ctrl T calls the triangulate face command. Most often Blender just does it correct the way you want it. But if you would have other stuff here, so edges going from here and here, that might be that Blender doesn't find the correct way. You can play around with those. When I had that, I almost never had any luck changing those options. But what helps in most of the cases is selecting the other mesh parts and hiding them. And then in general, Blender finds the correct direction. So this edge here, this has to stay. Otherwise we would have an NGon again. This has to go and this has to go. So I again select that area here, and now I press Alt J, which calls the twist to quads command, and like before, in most of the cases, Blender just does it correct. Blender is really good with this. Otherwise, you have to play around with the angle and stuff like that. And that's how you work with automated. They aren't really automated, but you know what I mean, with automated selections. If you have questions about this, please ask in the comments. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, share and subscribe. And about that, I had a message. They wrote they would love to support me but can't afford it. I don't have memberships on YouTube, and the regular subscription on YouTube is free, so please subscribe to my channel. I hopefully see you in the next one. Have a great time. Take care. Bye bye.